Здравствуйте, my friends, and welcome to Pros and Cons of Living in Odessa, Ukraine. I spent just about a month in Odessa here in September. It was an amazing city, one of my favorite places I've lived in a long time, and I'd love to tell you why I love this city, why I love Ukraine, and why living in Ukraine is so damn хорошо. So, if that sounds good, let's do it. Before we get into the content, I want to let you guys know that I'm on Patreon. I'm going to start doing some membership-only podcasts, Q&As, and things like that for people who are interested in traveling abroad. You can support me with the link right here. Also, if you don't want to support me and you just want to hit the like button, that would be great. Subscribing would be even better. Leaving a comment and just going back and forth with me is also welcomed. So, let's get into the content. Давайте. All right, давайте. Let's get into the pros. Pro number one is that Odessa is a miraculously beautiful example of old imperial Russian Empire architecture. So, the city itself is what I would call a museum city. Walking around the center of Odessa is unmatched with many other cities in the world of its architectural prowess. It's one of the most beautiful places I've lived, hands down. Beautiful churches, beautiful old streets. The Opera House is something, it's something out of a Shakespeare play. It's so damn beautiful. So walking around the city in Odessa is just delightful. And every minute you walk around is just a minute that you get to enjoy. So I'm a big sucker for beautiful cities. I love Prague. I love Budapest. I love St. Petersburg, Russia. And Odessa, Ukraine cannot be forgotten in that list of beautiful Eastern European spots. The second pro is the really beautiful and amazing local markets that they have in the city. So if you guys are curious about what a Ukrainian market looks like, especially in Odessa, you can check out my video here about Privoz Market, probably the city's most famous market. It's an open air market with fish, with beautiful vegetables, with Georgian breads, with wine. It's everything you want out of a food experience in Eastern Europe, with local babushkas selling their local vegetables that they probably grew in their garden along with other large vendors. The markets are fantastic. And there's another market on the other side of the city, I'll link it below, that sells everything from tools and other goods for your home to Sundays they actually have a dog market. So if you're looking to buy like a high quality dog, people roll up with their cars, they open the back of their trunks and they have pretty much like all the different kinds of dogs, cats, birds that you can find. It's one of the strangest sights that I've seen. I've really never seen someone kind of like selling vaccinated and fixed dogs just ready to go out of their car. But it seemed pretty poppin'. Lots of people, very interesting. So if that's your kind of thing and you're a big market person, I actually have to say, like Odessa, they've got really good stuff. And since they have lots of immigrants from Central Asia, from Kyrgyzstan, from Uzbekistan, as well as from the Caucasus region, Georgians, Armenians, Azerbaijanis, they have a lot of diversity that you can find that you wouldn't necessarily expect to see in a typical Ukrainian market. So it's something you got to do. My third pro is that Ukraine is pretty damn cheap. So the Ukrainians use the hryvnia. They're not part of the EU. So that means that their economy is, it's up and coming. It means that prices for foreigners, especially if you're coming from Europe, from Australia, from the United States, it's really good. Kiev is probably going to be the most expensive Ukrainian city, and then any other city is going to be a lot cheaper. The one thing is that Odessa, in comparison to a lot of the more local Ukrainian cities, is expensive because it's a beach tourist location for a lot of Russians. So it depends on where you go. If you're in the city center, it's pretty cheap unless you're in a tourist restaurant. And if you're in a local part of Odessa where just local people go, it's really, really cheap. You can eat for like $2. You can get a beer for like 50 cents. It's really, really, really quite cheap. There are these kind of clubs. There's this area that's all along the Black Sea coast. Clubs, bars, cafes, and restaurants. Those can be kind of expensive because those are made specifically for people coming from Turkey, from the Arab world, and from Russia to spend money, to take people out, and to have fancy dinners with beautiful Ukrainian women. So if you want to avoid that, you can easily avoid it. The next pro is that in comparison to a lot of Ukraine, the weather is actually pretty reasonable. So in the summer, it gets really hot, but the best part is you have the Black Sea. So it's beautiful. Lots of people flock to Odessa from all over Eastern Europe to see the beautiful sea and to spend time there. So summer's really nice. Autumn and spring are also pretty nice in comparison to the really frigid, cold rest of Ukraine. So actually, if you're comparing, I'm not a big cold fan, but if you're comparing Ukraine weather as a whole, I would actually say that Odessa is probably the best place you can be for weather. And even when I was there towards the early October of 2021, it wasn't even that cold yet, just balmy jacket weather, not like the -10, -20 degrees that they experience in Kharkiv or Lviv or the capital city, Kiev. The next pro for me is that Odessa has a really vibrant food scene, and you can find really good restaurants, a good price from various parts of the world. So I found that Georgian food is super amazing in Ukraine. It seems like it's overtaken the local Ukrainian food in many ways. There's just so many Georgian restaurants, and if you haven't tried that cuisine, it is fantastic. One of my favorites, a top 5 for me in the world. If you disagree, comment below. That being said, you can get Asian food, you can get Turkish food, you can get Arabic food, you can get lots of different things. And so that has this kind of multicultural vibe because there are lots of foreigners who flock to here because they have a university, because it's a tourist location. So it's a little bit less like Eastern European homogenous. And I think that's really nice as a foreigner living there. So big ups. The last thing I'll say is being a foreigner, I speak some decent Russian, so it's really okay for me. But if you're coming with no Russian skills, since there are so many foreigners here, you can get away without being able to read Cyrillic if you stay really in the tourist zones, and you can get away without knowing any Ukrainian or Russian language. Lots of foreigners coming here for various reasons, whether it's business or tourism. So restaurants have adapted to this, and there's always menus typically written in Latin letters. Unless you're going to a really local place, you might be out of luck there, but in other cases, you'll be fine. So I found that pretty nice and semi-helpful. But if you do want to speak Russian language, it's a very nice place where you can practice, lots of locals to talk to. Some people say they're not the most friendly in Odessa. I don't know. I liked people of Odessa, so I'm not going to say anything bad. I enjoyed my time. So with the good, there's always the bad, and I'm going to try to keep it really real because Odessa, while it is a really beautiful place, has some things that are really off-putting for some people, and I would love to share those with you now. The first thing I'll talk about is the short-term apartment renting, which is always important for people looking to live abroad. I found that the quality of apartments in Odessa was really low unless you wanted to pay a really high price. And many of the people, I guess, who were offering these places were not really negotiable or didn't speak any English. So it was really challenging to find a good place to stay for a reasonable price. Not to knock Ukraine, but it shouldn't cost $1,000 to spend a month in an apartment in Odessa. I also found this was a really big issue in Kiev, where the short-term renting is really expensive. My Ukrainian friend said it to me best. He said that there's very little middle class in Ukraine. There are the people who have money, who are making a typical European salary, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 euros a month. And then there are the people that are not making a European salary who are making 500 euros a month. So there's not this really middle market for housing, which keeps it relatively cheap. So if you have money, you live in the city center. If you don't have money, you don't live anywhere near the city center. If you have money, you shop and go to restaurants in the city center. If you don't have money, there's no way you can really afford anything there, which I find kind of unfair in a lot of ways for the local population. And I noticed a lot of the people who were, of course, going to the bars and to the restaurants in the city center, they were Russians, they were people from Kiev, they were people who were working online. I just think for the average Odessian, maybe it's just a little bit hard to kind of do it, which I don't really like that as a principle in a lot of cities where the locals can't afford the things that are happening in the city center. So that being said, number 2 is kind of a weather problem. So Odessa, because it's on the Black Sea, it's very windy. So if you don't really like the wind, it's not really a good place to live because you get these really big gusty breezes a lot of the year, apparently. And in the winter, it can be pretty bone chilling because you also get that sea cold situation. So Not really a big gripe, but it is a negative and something to be aware of. So you need a nice windbreaker, a nice hat. I think you'll be set, but it can get chilly. It can get pretty chilly, but it's Ukraine, so we know this. The next con I'll say is that the city itself is really poorly connected with flights, with buses, with trains. So not necessarily getting there. Getting there from Kiev is really easy. It's just a 6-hour bus ride or like a 6-hour train ride. But if you want to travel in Ukraine, like let's say you want to go to Lviv or Kiev or Kharkiv or Dnipro in the east, everything's really far away. So it's not really that convenient. The flights in and out are pretty expensive, to be honest, especially from Europe, unless you find some sort of Ryanair flight that is really cheap, or Wizz Air for some reason. The cheapest place you can go is pretty much Kiev. And then once you're in Kiev, it's easy to travel, but you're just kind of like out of the way. You're like tucked in the southwestern corner with not a lot of options for seeing other big cities in the region. There's no cool day trips you can really do. I dipped into Moldova, which was really nice. I also went to Transnistria, which is on the border, literally right on the border of Ukraine, like maybe 2 hours away from Odessa. So that's nice. But in general, if you're a big traveler, I wouldn't say it's good because it's really hard to travel from there abroad, and even in Ukraine, not amazing. So the next con I want to share with you guys is scams. Odessa is known as an international tourist destination. So you have lots of foreigners, specifically non-Russian speaking foreigners, coming to Odessa to enjoy the city, but also the, we can say the red light part of the city, which a lot of people do come specifically to Odessa for. So there are lots of scams taking advantage of specifically men, stupid men. So I'll explain some of those now. Taxis can sometimes scam you. Before you go to Ukraine, I would recommend downloading one of the various apps that they use. Uber seems to work pretty fine. So as to protect yourself, as taxi drivers will sometimes scam you or rip you off for really bad amounts of money. I've heard scams of people losing, upwards of $40, $50 on a really short taxi ride because it was just a kind of aggressive situation. So that's always something to be aware of. And the secondary scam is if you're a single man and you are talking to girls in Ukraine, just be aware that things may not be what they seem, as Odessa specifically is a huge prostitution city because of all of the Russians that come there during the summer season. So I can give you guys a funny little anecdote that I heard from one of my friends. It wasn't me, I promise. This was but it was a shocking, funny thing. So this guy, I met him via another friend. He's telling me the story of how he got on Tinder. He matched with a girl. They went out and had a drink. Normal. He meets her the next day. They go out and have another drink, and she recommends they go to a club. They get to the club, and at the club, it's just not what it seems. So they order some things like a hookah, a couple beers, and then 5 very large Ukrainian men circle him and basically say it's going to be something like 2,000 euros for the hookah and 3 beers. And it's a common scam. So these girls, they hop on Tinder, they try to get you in the club, and they're obviously working for the club, and they get a cut if they bring in a stupid man. And basically they kind of by force make you pay via credit card, or else you're probably not going to get out of there probably in one piece. So that happens a lot, and there is a lot of sketchy things with prostitution just in general in Odessa, because I think a lot of people know Ukrainian girls are beautiful, and it's just it kind of goes with the place. So I would just say, make sure you verify who you're talking to. Really important thing. Don't be stupid and don't go any place without people you know. That would kind of be my rule for that. And just protect yourself and protect your money, because there's lots of people in Odessa who are very happy to take it from you if you're stupid. If you're not stupid, it's a really nice place where you can meet lovely people, you can have really nice times, you can go to really good restaurants, and you can have a phenomenal little summer, little time in the fall. So while there are definitely cons, these are cons that you can find in a lot of cities in Eastern Europe and also a lot of cities around the world. So things to just definitely be aware of. But I hope I have armed you guys with the tools and the knowledge to make sure that your stay in Ukraine or Odessa specifically is going to be good. So that being said, I hope you guys found the video interesting. This is my last Ukrainian video, but I want to do a big traveling in Ukraine video, so stay tuned for that. Ukraine's still one of my favorite countries in the world. I can't believe how awesome that place is and how many people don't go there. So, go Ukraine. If you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell. That really helps me out. I would really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a comment. That would be great as well. So thank you guys for watching. Spasibo vam bolshoy, and we will see you in the next one. Do svidaniya, mój brat.